Know about. Here we go. All right, Claire, lead us off. Let's go. Let's get this started.
Okay. All right. So that's right. And that's what I mentioned to you guys yesterday because some of this stuff may not really apply to you right now because you're so young and vibrant and healthy. And you may want to share this with your dads or, let your dads get a hold of this information because midlife men, I mean, this really becomes apparent. So, what I want to go over today is what actually is andropause. Some of you may not have heard of that before. What is menopause in comparison? Why do women get all the attention? And then symptoms that men might feel. Some are obvious, some are not so obvious, and then what to do about it. So if I only have 30 minutes, that makes me a little bit stressed, but I'll try to talk faster than
You
usual.
can have our attention for as long as possible because it's about us and our manhood. So go right ahead, do whatever you want to. That's good.
Okay. So, I mean, I will say that I looked through a lot of different scientific studies putting this together, and this could be like an entire weekend presentation going into details, but just very quickly, I'll just try to keep it
Amen. Amen.
short.
Because it's about time us men get some respect for that andropause change that we're going through.
Yeah.
Because all we're hearing about is low T and women going through menopause. So
Yeah,
let's
and
go.
of course there's a whole lot more to it. And
Yeah.
just because a man might start feeling like less vitality, more tired, weight gain, or whatever, it doesn't mean that you need to jump straight to testosterone because there's probably an explanation, there's probably a root cause, and there are probably a whole lot of natural things that you can do in your diet and lifestyle before you start supplementing with testosterone. Because if you just throw testosterone into an unhealthy body, well, what's your body going to do with it? It's basically just adding another burden to an already stressed system. So just want to go over that. All right, so this first slide here, if looking at this diagram, it may look kind of confusing and crazy, but this is a very simple summary of male physiology. So at the top, the hypothalamus gland, that's in the brain, and it communicates through gonadotrophin releasing hormone. We're going down the green arrows to the pituitary, another little gland in the brain. This is like your master controller of the hypothalamus, understanding what are all the hormones doing in this system, and then telling the pituitary, you need to secrete some hormones to direct these glands to know what to do. So the pituitary gland tells the adrenals what to do, tells the thyroid what to do, and it also tells the ovaries and the testes what to do. So the pituitary secretes LH, luteinizing hormone, to tell the Leydig cells in the testes to produce testosterone. That's where the testosterone comes from. The pituitary gland is at the same time producing FSH, follicle stimulating hormone, to tell the Sertoli cells in the testes to produce the sperm. So if you're not trying to get pregnant, maybe the Sertoli cells and the sperm production is not the most important thing for you. But depending, I mean, it's actually a measure of health. And it actually would be a really good thing for young men who are not having issues to get their testosterone checked. So you sort of have a baseline and also get a sperm analysis because it's
Wow.
just another reflection of your overall health. Okay.
And
So
vitality, because you're looking at those sperms, that the way they move, how they flew, all that stuff is about their health and overall how you can what reproduce. Yeah.
you could even kind of take it as a representation of your mitochondrial health because think about the distance that sperm have to swim all the way to reach the egg. It is the equivalent of a person doing like 10 marathons in a row. So those little sperm have to have mitochondrial power. And with all the environmental toxicity that we are exposed to these days, this is a huge challenge for men. Okay, so down the left side of this diagram, from the Leydig cells in the testes, that's where you get your androgen hormones, the DHEA and the testosterone from. And then down on the right side of the diagram, from the Sertoli cells, that's where you get the sperm from. And you must have enough testosterone for that FSH to work on those Sertoli cells. So they go together. And then the other thing I wanted to mention here is that all of your sex hormones, whether it's estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, cortisol, and then others begin from a substrate of cholesterol. So for some men who are on statin drugs and their cholesterol is pushed really low, it shouldn't be a surprise that they probably also have low testosterone and they're not feeling that energetic or great.
Wow, did you just connect those dots right there? Because that was a profound statement. One more time. Cholesterol does what?
If we had more time, I would tell you about this very sweet older gentleman who came in to see me and do nutrition. And he was upset because he said his life used to be like Shangri-La and he wanted it to be like that again. And he said he had a very young, beautiful wife, trophy wife, and he was having trouble pleasing her. And then I looked at his labs with him, and his total cholesterol was like 120. And so then I had to explain to him the whole hormonal cascade. All hormones begin from a substrate of cholesterol. So it's a necessary substance that your body produces for growth and repair and for health of all of your cells. And so you can make enough hormones.
And what's the number one drug that's being sold out there?
Statins.
Well, it's almost number one still because now those antidepressants are even higher. So, yeah. So, literally, yeah. Cholesterol. Thank you, Claire. That's great info.
Okay, so then here's another little diagram that includes women as well. So just to reiterate, you've got the hypothalamus at the top. It communicates to the pituitary. The pituitary is producing LH and FSH. The LH is luteinizing hormone, and it speaks to the Leydig cells in the testes to produce more testosterone. The FSH is also communicating to the testes. It acts on the Sertoli cells to produce the sperm. For women, it's just a little bit different. The FSH is communicating to the ovaries to stimulate all the follicles. And one of those follicles is going to grow more receptors. It's going to be more sensitive to that FSH, and it's going to grow bigger than the other ones. It's going to become more dominant. And so then it starts producing its own estradiol. And when that estrogen hits its peak, that stimulates the pituitary to secrete the LH. So things go in a certain order in women, and we can test this with some of the testing that we do. And then the LH, the luteinizing hormone, sends that signal to release the egg. And then the egg is released from that follicle. And the follicle, you can imagine that it kind of blooms like a flower. And then that follicle starts producing progesterone. So in women, you generally don't get your progesterone if you're not ovulating. That can be a big problem. All right, so moving on. Okay, so what is andropause? Some of you guys may not have heard this too much, but it's also called in the research LOH, or late onset hypogonadism. Basically just meaning that the testes are starting to lose function. They may even be getting smaller. Your hormone production is not as robust. And of course, that can lead to symptoms. So this is a natural part of aging. For men, it is very gradual, it's predictable. But there have also been studies that looked at groups of healthy men and followed them for years and did not see a drop in testosterone. So just because you might be 30 years old now, it doesn't mean that at age 40, you're automatically going to lose 10% of your testosterone. Some men do, but some men don't. And I think the key there is if you can keep a handle on your metabolic health, then you understand the key to holding on to your hormones. It's kind of like the fountain of youth. So 88% of Americans are metabolically unwell. And I'll get into more of this later. But I'm going to show you in the next few slides that as your insulin resistance gets worse, and as your muscle mass gets worse, and as your obesity gets worse, all of these things have an effect on your testosterone. So the age of onset of your testosterone decline ranges based, number one, on your metabolic health. That's why I put two exclamation points here in here. Your muscle mass, your genetics, and then how you're living your lifestyle. How stressed out are you? Are you staying up all night? Are you chronically sleep deprived? And also your toxicity. Are you going out drinking all the time? Are you using Axe body spray and, cologne and all kinds of different synthetic chemicals on your skin? Are you living in a moldy house? All of these things have an impact to your energy, your mitochondrial health, and also your testosterone. So it's pretty typical in certain studies that are well cited and referred to and noted by the Endocrine Society. You can expect a loss of total testosterone of about 1% per year and a loss of free testosterone of about 1.6% per year because sex hormone binding globulin, which comes from your liver, is also rising in general as we age. So sex hormone binding globulin is just the body's way of controlling how much hormone is being felt at the cellular level. And so it kind of evens things out from day to day. But in men, the research shows that men who are more symptomatic, that tends to correspond with their testosterone levels more than any other hormone. And so you may think, well, what is the magic number that I'm looking for? You're looking at your test like, oh, is this high? Is this low? There is not a specific testosterone level that is magic for everyone. It's because people have different numbers of receptors and also different levels of toxicity where maybe some of your hormone receptors might be gunked up with some kind of a chemical that's preventing its absorption. So does that make sense to you guys? You can get your testosterone level checked and you can see that you have a normal level of testosterone in the blood circulating around. But if you don't have healthy receptors on your cells that are ready to pick that up and suck that into the cell, then it may as well not be there. So some men need to have a testosterone level of about 400, let's just say, nanograms per deciliter. Some men feel great, don't have any symptoms, everything's fine at a nice, relatively low level like that because they have a lot of receptors or their receptors are very healthy and everything's working very efficiently. Some men have to get their testosterone levels up maybe in the 800 or 900 range before they feel good because maybe their cellular health is not as good. They have less receptors to work with. And that could be because of your genetics, or it could be because of what you've been exposed to. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And then once somebody gets to a high level and they feel it, if you take somebody too high, they feel that and they're like, whoa, I'm ready. Let's go. And then that small decline back to their normal or to might be a little bit lower, that is so heavily felt that they never want to go back to that. So that's how they get them hooked on what? Taking those hormones and
Yeah.
driving that number. But the receptors and the sites are still doing what? You're still downregulated because your lifestyle hasn't changed much. So then they need what? More and more and more of that hormone to keep that feel good feeling.
Mhm.
But if we understand that lifestyle plays a bigger role than just bumping up, then we can
Yeah.
make those changes. Go ahead, Claire.
Yeah, I mean, because maybe you could do some detoxification.
Yeah.
Maybe you could do some weight training. Maybe you could get the sugar out of your diet, or you could lose 50 pounds. And suddenly, whatever testosterone level you were trying to hit, maybe you can feel a whole lot better with less. A normal physiologic level. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this graph just kind of illustrates what I was telling you before about as your age progresses from 25 is the left-hand side up to 100 at the right-hand side, you can expect your total testosterone to drop, but your free testosterone is dropping at a more steep what am I trying to say? At a steeper incline. So I don't know what it is with doing these little webinars, but I always tend to have worse sleep the night before, and then I fumble over my words. Okay, so
I might have an idea why that is. Somebody's up later working on them. That's okay. Keep going.
I was up late. Okay, so how does andropause tend to affect men? Well, just like women, there are many different symptoms that men can feel. It could be a general lack of vitality and zest for life. We do hear that a lot from guys. Low libido, reduced sexual function, erectile dysfunction, or less sexual thoughts and desire. Fatigue, loss of muscle mass, low mood, depression, feeling apathetic, just not really caring about life. Even high blood pressure and poor circulation. Um, your testosterone level is very protective of your arteries. And then what happens downstream is some of your testosterone is going to convert to estradiol. And you want a certain amount of estradiol because it helps to keep the inner lining of your arteries elastic and flexible. And so that means that you can have appropriate blood pressure depending on whatever you're doing. A little bit higher when you're working out, and a little bit lower when you're resting and sleeping. Normal fluctuations in blood pressure. Visceral adiposity is that central belly weight, not the fat that you can pinch, but the fat that is built up around your internal organs that you really can't see. That tends to go up as testosterone goes down. You could even start having low bone mineral density and get diagnosed with osteopenia or osteoporosis. It does happen in men. So this is a reason why you want to be weight training your entire life. Nobody wants to be frail. Definitely lack of desire. So this is a thing. Like in the bedroom, if you have a lack of desire, you're just not interested, it's just not happening. It's probably a testosterone issue. As opposed to if you have the desire, you have the want, you're aroused and turned on, but you're having a lack of erection, that's more of a circulatory issue. And so you want to be thinking more about that inner lining of your arteries, your capillary health, your ability to produce nitric oxide, and also, do you have enough estradiol? So it's from a natural strategy that would point us to a different set of herbs and supplements and dietary things or interventions, depending on which issue is being presented. Okay, so here are a few more symptoms that men could be feeling. Poor cognitive function, like less executive functioning, can't multitask as well, lower self-confidence, poor concentration and motivation, losing your hair, because let's say if your testosterone level is dropping, but it's not because you're not producing it properly, it could actually be sort of draining downstream and converting into DHT. Dihydrotestosterone is a hormone that is detrimental to the hair follicles. So you could actually be producing plenty, but then you're losing it because it's converting. And that's good to know. And you can see that in a blood test. And we have ways to deal with that.
Yeah, but I was always taught though, Claire, that God only made a few perfect heads, and then the
You've
rest,
got one. That's fine.
and then the rest he covered with hair. So I don't know what this whole idea. I really feel like that's kind of the deal. But anyway, all right, I'll let you keep going. Sorry.
Okay, so then gynecomastia, otherwise known as man boobs. So at, on the opposite side of the coin, let's say if you're producing plenty of testosterone, but let's say you're insulin resistant, that insulin activates an enzyme called aromatase, and it works on the testosterone to convert it to estradiol. And so when you're whole family of estrogens is too high, it can make you put on central belly weight like a beer belly and also man boobs. So that's a clear sign that a man is having trouble with his estrogen and possibly not detoxifying it properly, especially if his gut bacteria is off. So men can produce excess beta glucuronidase in their gut that recycles their estrogen back into the system. And so, I mean, everything that we talk about with women's health, it also applies to men. It's just men are sometimes not as outspoken about wanting to be proactive and working on their health and tend to think like, oh, it'll just go away or it'll just fix itself. But
Well, wait. I'm just going to correct something real
I'm
quick.
just generalizing.
Because no, it's great. It's because the funny thing is, you got you got three men on the on this Zoom call. There's really never anything wrong with us, is what I think is what you're trying to say, Claire.
Well, I think we just have three perfect specimens right here, but
No, no,
um,
I agree. Yeah.
so anyway, s some of your friends in this young, healthy age group may actually find themselves dealing with infertility that is unexpected because you would think if you're young, healthy, fit, you're doing everything right, you shouldn't have a problem getting pregnant. But we live in a very toxic world, and fertility is on the decline. Other things here, testicular atrophy, that's where the testes are getting smaller, and that can actually be a result of using exogenous testosterone. So all of our hormones are on a negative feedback loop. I'm sorry, our sex hormones are on a negative feedback loop. And when you start adding something in from the outside, your hypothalamus and pituitary will sense that. They'll realize, oh, we've got plenty of this hormone in circulation. I guess we don't have to make it ourselves. And so the testes can actually shrink because they're not being used as much. And that can be distressing to some men. Uh, Also insomnia. So I do want you to remember that testosterone is your get done hormone. Get it done. You know what I mean? And without it, we tend to feel like we're really lacking. So here's another study that I thought was kind of interesting. This was like a meta-analysis where they looked at lots of different studies looking at testosterone levels in men from 1971 to 2024. I'll have to edit this so I can put the reference straight to the study on this slide. But anyway, what was normal testosterone levels for a man in 1960 is considered to be supraphysiologic today. So like a 60-year-old man in 1960 had way more testosterone than what a 60-year-old man today would have. This is distressing, okay? So testosterone levels have dropped across the board, comparing men at the same ages over the past 50 years. So now what this study said, I wanted to read this little excerpt. In summary, over the past several decades, men's testosterone levels have shown a pathological, age-independent decline that cannot be explained by obesity and is most likely driven by environmental factors. This pathological decline in testosterone has shifted the population's normal reference range downward, leading to a systemic underdiagnosis and undertreatment experiencing symptoms of testosterone deficiency. So the physiological need for testosterone in order to feel our best has not decreased, but the production and the ability to retain and feel testosterone has decreased in men. So this is really distressing. And in July 2017, LabCorp changed its normal reference range. So it used to be 348 to 1197. Currently, it is 264 to 916 because the average bell curve that these ranges are determined from, the whole thing has shifted. What do y'all think about that?
I think it's solely, I mean, it obviously makes perfect sense, but I also think about the time back in the day too. There was more people outside, more activity, more working, less sedentary, less toxins, less, I mean, all of these things have increased. Our livers are more, we have more fatty liver, we have more congestion, we have more hormones, more cholesterol lowering medications. So many things that we're on right now that are driving sort of a lot of these numbers too, to be honest. I mean, think about when you
Yeah.
watched movies back in the 70s and 80s. Were people overweight or were they kind of skinny?
No, they look good. They
Yeah,
look really
it's,
good.
yeah. And that's where you're seeing some of these trends. And look at the fast food. Look at the omega 6s. Look at the inflammatory response we're going through. This to me is showing us not only what's happening to men, but what's also happening to our female population too. But it's perfectly following the agenda of selling more drugs, selling more hormones, selling more, solutions or suppressions, inhibiting or blocking medications to problems that we should not have because of the toxicity. So,
Oh, whoop. Hang on. Wait.
oh,
Here we go. Okay, sorry.
we rapidly went through some slides right there.
I know,
Okay, go
I
ahead,
know.
Claire.
I messed it up for a second. Okay, so just very briefly, what is menopause? Menopause is the hormonal decline that happens to women. And of course, it's all over social media. And I don't know, if I were a guy, I might be kind of tired of, hearing about it. But there are about 100 different symptoms that can affect women. And I feel like for women, we've been betrayed. And for the past 22 years, an entire generation of women, like our parents, the baby boomers, have missed out on appropriate care. And today's doctors have also missed out on 22 years of being trained properly. So for women, this used to be a taboo subject that wasn't really spoken about very much. But now that Gen X is feeling menopause, we are not afraid to talk about it. And we're talking about problems, we're talking about solutions, and that's why it's all over social media. So, menopause is a dramatic loss in hormones caused by ovarian failure that happens somewhere between age 45 to 55. And over the course of 1 to 2 years, women will lose approximately 60 to possibly 90% of the estradiol that we had back when we were having periods. And
Right.
so as
And
that,
as we talked about that really quick, like I don't mean to interrupt you, but is it really ovarian failure? Is that what they're calling it? Ovarian failure?
yes,
I mean,
yes.
because the sad truth is we think about that as a failure at 45 to 55. It just seems like your ovaries are once again medically making a mistake.
Okay, well, it's not a mistake. It is a cessation of life. It is an end of the road. The ovaries are not coming back to produce more estrogen based on a healthier lifestyle or feeding them better or taking an herb. It is
Right.
the end of the ovarian life.
Yeah, because when you look at these symptoms, night sweats, brain fog, insomnia, hair loss, random aches and pains, collagen loss, sarcopenia, all of those things can somewhat be adapted or changed through lifestyle. Sarcopenia, osteopenia, bloating, insulin. A lot of these things are lifestyle symptoms that are also there, but are way more obvious now as we go
Yeah.
through this. And it's happening on both sides, females and males too, because that is an adaptation to happening. And I don't want to miss the focus on andropause. Let's stay on that too.
I only have 1 or 2 slides on menopause. Please just humor me. So obviously, any of these symptoms can occur when a woman is younger and cycling and all of that. But in menopause, there's like this whole syndrome of, whoa, a lot of things change at once, and all of a sudden a woman might start having issues that she never had before. And all of these things can be related to a loss of estrogen because there is a remodeling of the brain during menopause, very similarly to what happened in puberty.
Yeah,
So the
and
body
I loved how you said that a syndrome. Remember when we talk about syndromes or the medical community, what is a syndrome? Remember? An unexplained.
collection of symptoms.
Perfect. I like
It's a
that.
whole
Unexplained.
collection,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I didn't even put frozen shoulder on here, but that should
Sure.
have been like top of the list. Because sometimes it's very confusing for women, 48 years old, still having a cycle to start having all of these problems and not connect it to, oh, my ovarian function is dropping because she may still be having a cycle. It's very confusing for the woman. It's confusing for the doctor. They're not trained properly. And sometimes it can take a while to put these pieces together. So I think I covered most of these things already. Estradiol drops by about 60% over 1 to 2 years. I did find a couple of studies that estimated that percentage higher. Estrogen ultimately drops to about a tenth of what we had in our premenopausal levels. And then 1 to 3 years after your final period, estrogen stabilizes at a very low level. When I say low, I mean it might be unmeasurable, like less than 5. Whereas what they're saying now to have optimal signal to the bones to prevent osteoporosis is between 60 to 100. So the natural decline may result in you having near zero estradiol levels. And what you need is somewhere between 60 to 100. Okay, so I did want to make the point that the ovaries cease their function of producing estrogen and progesterone. For men, it's different because your testes, no matter how old you get, are not going to stop producing some amount of testosterone. They will continue. There is not a certain age where it's the end of the road for men. All right, so here's a little diagram that I found in this one particular study, and I cited where it came from right here in the middle. All right, so let's look at puberty right in the middle of the screen, somewhere between age 10 to 14. Look what happens to the boys. So I don't know what it feels like to be a boy, but you guys can tell me, did you feel like you went from, I don't know, I'm kind of nothing, I'm just like a happy kid, to all of a sudden, wham, hormones are running my life? I mean, look how fast this red line, your testosterone, increases up to a maximum, somewhere in your 20s. And then look at how this line is drawn. There is a decline, but it seems kind of gradual, slow, and steady up to age 80, all the way to the right. Now let's take a look at what happens with women around puberty, around age 10 to 14. So you can see here, the red line is the estrogen, and progesterone is not pictured here. But in half of the month, you have high estrogen, and then in the other half of the month, you get high progesterone. And that is the cycle that women feel all through your reproductive years. And so once you get, so you can't see it on the bottom, but see where this vertical line is drawn under age 50? So those years, while you're cycling and you're having estrogen up and down and up and down, you're also having progesterone up and down and up and down. Nothing's really changing with women's testosterone. But then look what happens after age 50. Estrogen, bam, it just drops. And progesterone drops equally as fast, mirroring that red line. And then at the same time, FSH and LH start going higher. This is the pale purple and the turquoise line because the brain gets stressed and the brain starts calling out to the ovaries for more FSH and LH. So this is the test that doctors will run to see, are you in menopause? Because if your FSH is still a relatively low level, then you know that, well, the brain is pretty happy with the estrogen that you've got on board. But when your FSH goes high like this, then we know functionally you don't have enough estrogen to run your brain properly. So, and that's where you really need to start looking into, well, what kind of interventions can I do, whether it's herbal, glandular, lifestyle, sleep, what needs to change in order to feel better. So you can see this is a dramatic difference in the way that hormones change over the life cycle, particularly from ages 50 to 80. Okay, so like I mentioned before, your metabolic health is the key because 88% of the American population are metabolically unwell. We're basically like living in a toxic soup of sugar and preservatives and chemtrails and aluminum and mold that's having an effect on our hormonal health. In general, I would say we're eating too many carbohydrates, and that's probably the biggest thing that men can control themselves with the dietary choices that they're making. So I wanted to reiterate what I mentioned earlier. The insulin that goes up when you eat carbohydrates activates an enzyme called aromatase, and that takes the testosterone that you have and converts it into estradiol. And when that happens excessively, you can put on central belly weight, like a beer belly, and man boobs. And you can also have all of the other symptoms that I mentioned earlier. Sometimes that's not really the problem that happens. Sometimes men might tend to be overly androgenic, and they may have genetics that are built in the way that their 5 alpha, 5 alpha or 5, the 5 alpha reductase enzyme. I'm sorry, I put this wrong on the slide. You can have this enzyme that excessively converts your testosterone into DHT, and this would apply to men who lose their hair early because DHT is toxic to the hair follicles. Other things that are playing against us, the excessive chemicals in our environment and our food supply, like everything with soy acting like a xenoestrogen. Men are more stressed and lonelier than ever. So stress is going to have an impact on your testosterone because the more stressed you are, that increases your cortisol. It depletes your hormonal system over time, and it sort of shifts the emphasis of your hormonal production away from the reproductive hormones and towards the cortisol. So this is what Bob talks about all the time. When you're in that fight or flight stress response, it's detrimental to the whole body, and it can have impacts to your digestion, your cognition, to your longevity, like everything. Stress and sugar are the two most destructive things you can do to your body. Also, men may find it difficult to remain active as an adult if you aren't really into sports and, that's not really a part of your skill set. And I would say just culturally on television, men don't have a lot of good role models to look up to. There aren't a lot of cute sitcoms like, I guess I shouldn't use Bill Cosby as an example, but like the dad in Family Ties and the dad in Growing Pains. And, now we've got Everybody Loves Raymond, who's really like a doofus. And why can't we have some more male role models that are like adults that you can believe in? They're going to swoop in, fix the problems, and show you how things should be done. So these diagrams are from another study I found that just kind of illustrate that fact that we need to take care of our metabolic health. So as men advance in age, testosterone tends to go down from left to right. You see that going down. To the right, diagram B, as insulin goes up to the right, testosterone goes down. In the bottom left corner, BMI. As your BMI goes up and you become more obese, your total testosterone trend is to go down. And then this next one in the bottom right corner, if you do the oral glucose tolerance test, where they're taking glucose measurements, and if that's increasing, then also your total testosterone is going down. So then the last one, diagram E, if you calculate your HOMA-IR, So this is what you do. You do your fasting glucose times your fasting insulin, divide those numbers by 405, and that's for standard English units here in the US. Ideally, you would want less than 1, although if you're less than 2.0, that is considered to be normal. And then the higher that number turns out to be represents the amount of insulin resistance that you have. So what can we do? Um, I would say what you should do, none of this is medical advice, by the way, but what any particular man should do who's listening to this, it depends on your testing and your unique situation, what's been going on in your life, what levels can you measure, and what variables in your life are unhealthy that need to be fixed. Okay, so taking testosterone shots and using androgel is not necessarily the best solution for everyone. I would say that using exogenous testosterone is probably more like the icing on the cake. It's like the cherry on top of the banana split. Not that you want to eat the banana split, but basically you want to get your metabolic health working. Number one, have a healthy diet, get plenty of sleep, get in the gym, build muscle mass, have a good social group and connections, and use some herbs. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the supplements that we use. And then if you still are testing low and your liver looks healthy and you're still having symptoms, then it would be an appropriate time to start adding testosterone. But it's not the first thing to jump to. Questions that we like to think about for people: first, do you have enough hormone precursors on board? Like, do you have enough of a healthy level of cholesterol? You don't want your cholesterol levels to be too low. Do you have good intake of zinc? We like pumpkin seeds and oysters and ground beef as good dietary sources of zinc. And then also you can measure in your blood test your DHEA level. So DHEA is the hormonal precursor to producing your testosterone. If your DHEA is low, that's not going to be real good for your brain, and it's not going to set you up for a good level of testosterone either. Other things to think about: are you drinking too much alcohol, and could you cut that out? We usually want to figure out, are you over converting to estrogen, that's estradiol, the E2, or DHT? Have you been overstressed or chronically sleep deprived? Or maybe are you toxic and just need a cleanse? All right, so here's some of our favorite go-tos for men. I would say one of the first things that we recommend for men would be some variety or combination of adaptogenic herbs, because they have so many overlapping benefits. They help to tone and strengthen the adrenals. They help to reduce stress, build resilience, increase stamina, help with lean body mass, reduce inflammation. I mean, you name it. Adaptogenic herbs are amazing. And we like to put them together with some glandular support. So you could take adrenal glandular, you can take thyroid glandular, you can take testicular glandular, you can take all kinds of stuff. And the idea is to build and fortify your body and your hormonal system to be stronger. And then, of course, we like to put that together with whatever minerals help to feed those glands. And we've just got a lot. So this is why we do personalized nutrition consultations, so we can get into the details about what's making your body work and what might be an obstacle. Out of all the different adaptogenic herbs that have been studied and researched in PubMed, by far and away, ashwagandha is number one. It's really good for thyroid health. It is good for your circadian rhythm. It is not stimulating, but it is restorative. And so that's why it's good to help you with energy through the day, but you can also take it at night, and it's relaxing and helps with deep sleep because it restores a proper circadian rhythm. On top of that, or with that, or instead of that, we like other herbs for different reasons. Tribulus can be very helpful just to increase hormonal output. Ginseng is really well known for longevity. Peruvian maca and red velvet deer antler. We have those herbs available from a couple products in our biotics line, really good for virility. Then, of course, the zinc and the DHEA that I mentioned, we were talking on the last slide. And specifically Tongkat Ali, if we see someone who has maybe a decent amount of total testosterone, a small amount of free testosterone, and their sex hormone binding globulin is high, Tongkat Ali can help to reduce that sex hormone binding globulin that lets more testosterone free into circulation so it can be felt. So that's a specific pattern that we look for in the blood work that would give us the confidence to know that Tongkat is really an appropriate herb for that situation. And then saw palmetto is another one that we like to use sometimes, especially for men who have BPH and they're waking up all night so that they have to pee because the prostate is enlarging. Well, saw palmetto is really good for that, and it's good to block that 5-alpha reductase enzyme that I mentioned earlier that converts your testosterone to DHT. Other things that we would recommend for different reasons, aside from dietary, trying to follow a low-carb diet, getting more chromium or other glucose management herbs, maybe like gymnema might be good to have on board, weightlifting. And then, of course, there are the B vitamins, choline and inositol, that are specifically really good for sugar handling and fatty liver. And if a man is also very inflamed, we'll often recommend omega-3s and turmeric because systemically they do such a good job. And then, of course, Orchex is one of our favorite blends of calming minerals and B vitamins that can help men with stress management. So just to sum up very quickly, menopause here on the left starts around age 50. It's a dramatic loss of estradiol by at least 60% in a short time frame of about 1 to 2 years. It definitely coincides with a loss of progesterone, but may or may not involve a loss of testosterone. Some women in their later years have plenty of testosterone, and this is what Dr. Bob was saying about women becoming more testosterone driven, more making the decisions, more productive, starting businesses, more getting things done. At the same time, men may be dealing with a loss of testosterone where they just become more passive and happy to let the woman make the decisions and do all the things. I would say, I guess, the point that I wanted to make on here is that I think men do have kind of an idea that testosterone is important. I think there's sort of a general awareness that they get that. And if they start feeling bad, that maybe they have a testosterone problem. And if they go to the doctor, I think doctors have a good idea of maybe we should check your testosterone. And if they see that it's low, I think doctors are very quick to suggest maybe we'll put you on androgel or we'll get you some testosterone shots. I feel like this is a big complex issue that there are many facets involved in. And I feel like the current system kind of makes a beeline straight for replacing testosterone without addressing the other things that a man might need to feel his best.
Of course it does.
Right?
Why do you think that is? Do you think that people want to work hard for their health, or they want the easy, simple route? And the medical community doesn't want to sit down and have that conversation with, let's make this complicated because you got to get rid of this, and this, and do this. And that to me is the problem, because then they go, all right, well, I can give you this cream and we can just try to drive the crap out of you, shrink your nuts, and here we go.
Shrink your nuts and grow your boobs.
Yeah.
I
I mean,
mean,
it's just
it could
stupid.
happen, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So,
So on the other end of the spectrum, look at what women are dealing with. The women are confused because they're not understanding their symptoms. They didn't get taught by their mothers what to expect because the mothers weren't educated by the doctors, and they didn't, because of the Women's Health Initiative, and that misinterpretation, they missed out on getting proper care. And so, and when we go to the doctors aren't trained, the doctors aren't recognizing it. You're getting all kinds of different answers from, your doctor versus your hairdresser versus your best friend versus your mom who just had to
Yep.
suck it up and they told her, just deal with it.
And
It it's
that's because
hard.
all your labs look normal. All your stuff
Yeah,
looks normal from what they're
yeah,
measuring. So,
yeah.
and they're not really getting to know or create the personality or the relationship with the clients because they're so bogged down. There's so much going on. And because so many older women, like you said, our parents didn't have the conversation with the medical community. So, where are these mentors teaching these new docs how to handle this with these women? They don't know. So, what do? They
Mhm.
literally just throw hormones at them. So, let's
Yeah.
not get
So
into it too much longer. Is this the last slide we got here?
this
Are we
is the
close?
this is the last one.
All
It's
right,
the last. So
perfect.
long story short, everybody who's dealing with some hormone issues, it's not just the hormone that is the problem. It is a whole spectrum of metabolic health that needs to be looked at. That means that you need more than a 5-minute appointment with someone who's knowledgeable and trained. And men have issues just like women have issues. Men deserve equal attention. We're different, we're equal, we're complex, we're beautiful. And that's
Wow.
what I wanted to tell you guys.
That's a great ending. We're beautiful people. That's right. So, listen, I'm going to ask because we are going to kind of wrap this up really quick, but I know Travis, Sam, I want to let you guys open the floor. If you have questions, since our expert in male health is right here with us right now, Claire, I love this is good. So, ask some questions, guys. What did you learn about this so far? Like anything jump out at you guys? Anything like make you go, wow, I want to know this, a little bit more about that? Travis. And by the way, Claire, this was a great presentation. I do enjoy it because it's so neat to just kind of understand what everybody's going through and understand that it is biblical. It is a transformation. No one's going to go through and say, oh, you're never going to have these symptoms or problems or whatever. No, no, no. We're all going through them. And to understand it and be able to relate and be able to have a conversation, that's the brilliance of, I think, with functional nutrition. That's different than just your medical doctor going, you have these symptoms. Here's the only solution, which is this drug. So, Travis, you got a question for me? Sam.
Not really a question, but I do like kind of understand some of the things Claire was talking about. I mean, even just changing the food and the meat that I'm eating, you can already see like just a little bit more energy and drive and things like that. And I feel like you said before, in our, American diet, it's a lot of processed foods. It's a lot of things going in our foods that, you know, other people are cooking for you at restaurants, so you don't actually know what you're getting, and it can definitely hinder.
Affect you. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I tell you what, and one of the things cool, Travis, you mentioned like there are hormones in the meat that we're
Yep, there
eating
are.
that you're not getting if you're not getting organic or naturally raised, something that's grass fed. You're getting hormones put into the chicken and the cow that you're eating, which then you're having to deal with, or your liver's bogged down or something like that. So that's so big, Travis. Great job. I mean, I totally agree with that. Sam, anything you want to add?
I was just gonna say, like, especially weightlifting too. Like, you don't realize how
Yeah,
much of a difference that makes
you get in
with.
there and strength train. Yeah,
Mhm. And I
yeah.
definitely felt the effects taking
Oh,
a
when
break
yeah,
for
yeah. When you took a
months.
break, yeah. Let's ask one more thing. Just Sam, favorite male vitamin that you're taking right now that you think is great for you that you've been on or that kind of helps kind of support you.
Well, I'm not on one currently, but I will say just a lot of patients talk about the amino HGH and testosterone premium. Those are
Yeah.
two really good ones.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, and I wouldn't say you need that one, right? But have you taken Simplex M before? Have you taken
Yep.
the Perfect
Fabulous.
Aminos? Go ahead,
I was gonna
Travis.
say I'm taking the saw palmetto plus because I don't want to lose my hair. I'm a little worried about that. I started taking
It
that.
just moves, Travis. It
Yeah,
goes from
I
here to
know.
here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good.
So I started taking that, and then I've taken the Tribulus and Tomcat before and stuff like that, just to kind of play around with it a little bit.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing, right? Because remember, and she's right, because saw palmetto can also block some things. We're not using it like a drug,
Hmm.
but at some point we would tell you to shift and play around with that because we're not really trying to block, inhibit, or suppress. But even though it does kind of slow that transformation, and it can inhibit a little bit of what's going on with your production. And so it's a very, like for somebody young like yourself, yeah, we could take it, but we would also probably pay attention to other things to support your body more than just that product to help fix. Yeah. So love that. Love the idea. Love the idea of adding the Simplex. Tribulus is a great product that you can add. It's not a cheap product, but then again, neither is hormone replacement. And what you're trying to do is do a natural approach to this, then let's just give it to you, and drive you. So Claire, once again, I mean, I know these guys will agree with me. This was a great presentation, a lot of good information. Thank you for paying attention to us men for a little while. We appreciate that. It was kind of nice. We threw in some female stuff that was good too. But yes, we appreciate being the center of attention every once in a while. Right, fellas? Every once in a while?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. So
Deserve it.
anyway, Claire, thank you again for doing this. This will also be posted so that people have a chance to re-watch this and go over it. But also share this with your parents, your friends, your family, because they just don't hear this on a regular basis. We don't go to a gynecologist. We don't have that reel as an expert, unless you're, but I love the idea of getting your sperm checked. Why not? It's a great idea of your vitality. And you can see change from one sperm test to another just by adding in nutrition and playing around with that. So, as fertility issues get worse and worse, we're not blaming it all on females, even though, think about it, who's doing more hormones than anybody else? It's not males when they're younger. It's who? It's females doing what? Birth control. I mean, come on. How many, well, I'm not going to say it to you guys, but how many women out there are not on, or never been on birth control before, right? That's just a rite of passage. It's like getting braces. It's just one of those things now that they've done. And now we see $1 billion industry in what? Infertility. So we got to be aware of these things, really be supportive, get back to biblical healthcare, really pay attention to this stuff, and reach out, talk to us. If there's anything we can do to help you out, please let us know. So anyway, I'm going to shut off the recording. Thank you. We have no idea what's coming next in 2 weeks, but get ready. Hold on to your hair, your hat, whatever you got, and we'll see what happens coming around the corner. Thank you, Claire. Appreciate it. And we'll see everybody again in 2 weeks.
Okay, thanks.